General Hospital spoilers are setting up what looks like one of those parties that is doomed before the first drink even gets poured. And honestly, that's probably the point. Jen Sidwell is apparently trying to do something that sounds almost noble on paper, which is already a red flag in Port Charles. He wants to host a dinner party that brings together the families of Lucas Jones and Marco Rios. Nice idea. Civilized idea. Very grown-up. But this is General Hospital, so obviously nobody really expects this thing to end with polite applause dessert and a warm group photo by the fireplace. And let's be real for a second. If everything went fine, if everyone sat down and used indoor voices and worked out their problems over fancy food, there wouldn't be much of a show. There wouldn't be a reason to tune in. So right from the jump, this whole setup feels like a powder keg in a suit jacket. It looks classy on the outside, but underneath there's anger, secrets, bad blood, side eyes, and probably at least one person hiding something huge. Maybe several people. Probably several. That's usually how these things go. So Sidwell's plan, as far as anyone can tell, is to create some kind of forced peace summit. A family merger by candlelight. A tense little social experiment. Get Lucas and Marco's worlds in the same room. Make people talk. Make them listen. Maybe smooth over old wounds. Maybe prove he can control the room. Maybe show off a little too... Because with Sidwell, it never feels like it's just about kindness. There's usually another layer. Another reason, another game being played somewhere under the table. And then you look at the guest list and the whole thing starts to feel less like a healing dinner and more like a countdown clock. Ava Jerome is going. Lucy Coe is going. That alone should tell you this night is not staying calm for very long. These are not exactly two people known for quietly sipping water and letting things slide. Ava brings heat into a room even when she's trying not to. Lucy can turn a weird little comment into a full emotional tornado in about 10 seconds flat. So yeah, there's a very good chance sparks fly there. Maybe insults? Maybe shouting. Maybe one of those icy smiling confrontations that somehow feels worse than yelling. You can already hear the sharp little pauses in the conversation. The fake smiles. The, oh, I didn't mean anything by that lines that absolutely mean something. But weirdly, that may be the easy part of the night. Because the bigger issue might be that this dinner party has death vibes all over it. Or fake death vibes. Or near-death vibes. Same difference for the people in the room. Something feels off. Heavy. Like one of those old-school soap setups where the audience is basically being told, yes, dress nicely. Because things are about to go very wrong in a very dramatic building. And that building matters too. Windermere is not some bright little restaurant downtown. It's Windermere. Gothic, creepy, dramatic Windermere. The kind of place where even the walls seem like they know secrets. The kind of place where a simple dinner can turn into a missing person case before the appetizers are done. So when people start talking about danger at a party there, it doesn't sound dramatic. It sounds normal. Almost routine, honestly. So one of the biggest questions hanging over all this is simple. Who drops first? Because there is a strong sense that somebody is going to be found sprawled out somewhere. A body in a hallway. A figure on the floor. Someone motionless in a hidden room. Maybe in the catacombs, because apparently this party also comes with creepy underground possibilities. Which is just very on brand for this show. And it may be a real death. Or it may be one of those classic soap, wait, they're not dead, they're just unconscious moments. But either way, somebody may end up looking very, very dead before the night is over. And Pascal looks like one of the most obvious candidates. That's just the feeling right now. He has the kind of energy soap viewers recognize fast. A character who seems useful enough to stir trouble but expendable enough to lose. The sort of guy who could suddenly become the centerpiece of the night's disaster. If things escalate, he could be the one who pays for it. And there are already a couple ways that could happen. One possibility is Marco taking Pascal out to protect Lucas. That would be big, messy, emotional, and kind of tragic in the way soaps love. Marco being pushed to some edge. Marco deciding in one terrible second that violence is the only answer. Marco doing something that changes everything. That kind of move wouldn't just wreck the party. It would ripple out way past one episode. It would change relationships, create guilt, invite suspicion, and open up a whole new chapter of fallout. The kind of fallout that sticks. But there's another possible twist here, and this one has Britt Westbourne written all over it. Because Britt is apparently considering using a sodium pentothal syringe on Pascal, and that alone makes this whole event even more unstable. It adds a wildcard medical threat into a already shaky social gathering. And if Britt actually uses it, Pascal could wind up appearing dead even if he isn't. And that would be classic soap chaos right there. People panic. Someone screams, somebody assumes murder. Others start pointing fingers. And all the while, the corpse might just be unconscious on the floor while the room melts down around him. And honestly, that might be even more fun than a straight-up killing. More confusion, more bad decisions, more people saying incriminating things because they think the worst has already happened. A fake death can be just as explosive as a real one when everybody starts spiraling. Sometimes worse, because when the truth finally comes out, there's a whole second wave of consequences. Still, the danger may not stop with Pascal. That's the thing. He may be the most obvious target, but he might not be the only one at risk. Any guest at this thing could wind up in trouble. This party feels loose in a bad way, like too many unstable personalities are being stuffed into one haunted location with too many secrets, too many grudges, and too much opportunity. And that's before you even get to Jack Brennan. Because yes, Jack has an invitation too. And that opens up a whole different lane of trouble. Jack Brennan showing up to a gathering hosted by Sidwell sounds like the start of a problem, not the solution to one. If Jack somehow ends up on Sidwell's bad side during the night, the whole atmosphere could turn ugly fast. And not just socially ugly. Not just tense banter and loaded glances. Actual danger. Actual threats. Real fear. The kind where one wrong move sends everything off the rails. It's not hard to picture Jack getting cornered, challenged, or dragged into something he didn't plan to deal with at dinner. And then there's Valentine Cassadine, because apparently this whole mess wasn't crowded enough yet. If Valentin uses the party as cover to sneak around and investigate the catacombs, then all bets are off. That feels like the kind of move that sounds smart for about 5 minutes, and then turns into total disaster. Valentin creeping through hidden areas while a tense dinner unfolds upstairs. That's not subtle, that's asking fate to hit the gas. Because either he finds something huge, which would be dangerous enough, or somebody finds him, and that may be even worse. So imagine it. The guests are distracted. The room is already uneasy. Maybe Ava and Lucy are sparring. Maybe Sidwell is trying to play host while keeping his own nerves hidden. Maybe Marco is watching Lucas, Lucas is watching everyone else, and Jack is trying to figure out where the night is headed. Meanwhile, Valentin is slipping into the catacombs, poking around where he probably shouldn't be. And then somebody spots him, or somebody else is already down there. Or there's an actual body. Or what looks like one. And suddenly, the whole event shifts from awkward dinner party to full panic mode. That's the kind of soap disaster that can unfold in layers. First, the social tension, then the private scheming, then the shock, then the scream, then everyone rushing toward a scene they absolutely are not ready for. And that scream feels almost inevitable here, because it is very easy to picture one of those classic GH moments. A door creaks open. Footsteps echo. Someone turns a corner, and then bam, they freeze. A gasp. A hand over the mouth. Eyes wide. And there on the floor inside the castle walls is someone who appears lifeless. That image alone could shut the whole thing down in seconds. Music dead. Dinner over. Polite conversation gone. Every person in the room instantly becoming either a suspect, a witness, or a liar. Maybe all three. And really nothing kills a party faster than an actual body. Or even the rumor of one. That's why this whole dinner setup feels less like a celebration and more like a trap disguised as a social event. Not necessarily a deliberate trap, although with Sidwell you never totally rule that out. But at minimum, it feels like the kind of night where every effort to force unity just makes hidden problems blow up louder. He may truly want Lucas and Marco's families to come together. Maybe. Fine. But intentions don't matter much once people start spiraling. Once old enemies start talking, once somebody sneaks off, once somebody collapses, once somebody thinks they've seen a murder. And there's another thing about Sidwell here. He seems to believe he can manage this, that he can host it, contain it, steer it, maybe even benefit from it. But that confidence may be exactly what gets shattered. Because the vibe around these spoilers is that unforeseen problems are coming, and they're not small ones. This isn't just, oh no, dinner got awkward. This is more like the evening detonated, and now everyone's life is worse. Big difference. And that would track, because on soaps, the person who thinks they've planned for everything is usually the one who gets blindsided hardest. Sidwell may have the venue, the guest list, the goal, but he does not have control. Not really. Not once Ava and Lucy start clashing. Not once Jack gets pulled into the mess. Not once Valentine starts creeping around. Not once Britt has a syringe in play. Not once Pascal becomes a possible casualty. At that point, the party belongs to chaos. So yeah, fans should probably brace for a rough ride here. Maybe it ends in a real death. Maybe it ends in a fake out. Maybe someone is poisoned. Maybe someone is drugged. Maybe someone disappears. Maybe someone learns a horrible truth in the worst possible place. Maybe Sidwell's big night turns into one of those disasters people in Port Charles talk about for months. Probably feels likely. This show doesn't waste a creepy mansion dinner on mild discomfort. And sure, there is technically a chance that this all turns out to be some kind of prank or misunderstanding. A deadly prank, maybe? A stage scare. A fake corpse situation. But even that wouldn't make things funny. Not now. Not in this setting. And not with all these unstable ingredients in the mix. It's too dark, too weird, and too loaded for that. The joke would land like a brick. In other words, badly. So as this Windermere gathering gets closer, the real headline is pretty simple. Sidwell may want peace, but peace does not seem to be what's coming. What's coming looks more like fear, shock, accusations, and one huge interruption nobody can walk back. A dinner party that starts as a family bridge-building exercise may end with a body, a betrayal, or one of those awful discoveries that changes everything. And that's why this feels worth watching. Not because it sounds smooth, but because it sounds like a total mess. A rich, spooky, dramatic mess. And General Hospital at its best knows exactly how to serve that.